Happy Monday. Boom, there we are once again. It is Monday, and hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. As always, I'm your host, David Burrows. How was your weekend? And the same question I've been asking for weeks. How are you doing? Are you holding up okay? I don't know how closely you've been following the news. I know some people have just like, you know what? I'm just going to like once a day maybe tune into something that tells me what I need to be doing because there's just so much of the word coronavirus or COVID-19. The whole world is talking about this thing that has shut us down, sort of shut us down. I think to what we were used to seeing is what's been shut down. But everybody's certainly got a unique situation that they're dealing with right now. And I hear that a lot where people go, oh, everybody's got a different situation. It's true. You know what? We all had different situations before that, right? They're just changing again. Wouldn't want to be in the position of being one of those decision makers right now where they're deciding what gets done or doesn't get done. Although the decisions have been being made where, of course, over the weekend, we saw garden centers were allowed to open. We saw hardware stores allowed to open. And somebody said to me the other day, they said, well, what do you mean they're allowed to open? I've seen hardware stores open. No, they're allowed to open their doors and you can walk in the store now if they choose. That's not necessarily what everybody's choosing to do. There's certainly a lot of different opinions out there about what's being done or what should be done or shouldn't be done. Or there's a lot of confusion out there for sure. Try being the decision makers, i.e. our government at different levels that have to make decisions based on, for example, Mayor Mike Bradley is going to be joining me shortly from an interview I did with him on the weekend. And he talks about how they're taking the information given to them by the provincial and federal government, and then they have to decide what that means. So try being in that position. How's everybody doing out there? Say hello in the comments below so I know that you're there, and tell me how you're doing. Tell me where you're watching from. We do get broadcasted throughout the world. And I used to just go live on the Show with David Burrows page. Now we go live on the Video Show Network, the Talk Show Network. We are live on YouTube channel as well. All right. I don't normally go live on my YouTube channel, so that's something I've started doing. And live on Twitter. That's right. Tim Curtis, how are you doing? Tim, are you surviving well? What are you doing to keep yourself busy and out of trouble, right? Lots of people going live. We've been able to go live on the Friday night. We have the Friday Night Music Fever, which is caught on very well. Music certainly popular online, so much more than it used to be, that's for sure. And we're having a lot of fun with that. I think this past Friday, we were into our 8th week of the Friday Night Music Fever. And thanks to our friends at K106.3, who also take the live stream and cross-post it through their Facebook page. Blue Water Border Fest joined us as well. And thanks to my friend Jules, who is my co-host. And she gets a lot of musicians together. So I'm really grateful for her as well. And so it's just, like today or the other day, like they talked about they're opening parks today, right? And some not local businesses, certain businesses are allowed to open curbside service. And again, I go back to you talking about the confusion out there of what you can or cannot do. Let me share an experience that I had recently where so I have a live streaming business, right? And I have talk show and I'm kind of media. So I went to the Ontario government website and went through the list of essential services. What's considered an essential service? I'm still confused. even after going to the website. And then I made a phone call to the Ontario government, the phone number that's posted on their website, if you have questions to call. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting anybody down here. I think it's just, so I called the 1-800 number because I looked under this section. It said IT services, online services. I'm an online service. I do live streaming. I provide that service. And then the other section was a newspaper, radio, and TV broadcasting. So where do I fit into that? Well, I kind of think I kind of do. So I call the 1-800 Ask Me Anything number. And, gentleman was very polite. It was great. It was, and they answered right away. I didn't wait long. And I was told, well, he's Mr. Burrows. You see how that's vaguely written? And I said, well, yeah, that's why I'm calling you. So at the end of the day, the answer that I got was, you decide if you're an essential service, Mr. Burrows, and you perform your business accordingly. If you have employees, which I don't, I just me. Sometimes my son helps. So, okay, he's an employee. I decide if I'm an essential service, and then if an officer of the law or a bylaw officer or someone of authority were to challenge why I'm where I'm at or doing what I'm doing, they can give me a ticket. It's up to them. So that's not really the answer I was looking for. So I guess practice social distancing at the end of the day. If you do that, for sure. I'm still confused about all of that too. My friend Stephen Healy from the United Kingdom, we do our show every week. I was glad to be, I couldn't make it last week. I live streamed a wedding. There you go. And this is why I made all the phone calls and made sure that I crossed my T's and dotted my I's. Was I allowed to be there live streaming this wedding? I believe so. I was far away from the bride and groom, who lived together, so they were side by each. Mom and dad were there, and they were far apart as well. Is that okay? I can go to a group. Anyway, I don't know. It's just, I think there's a lot of confusion out there. So that is why I reiterate, get your information direct from the source, even if the source is being a little bit vague. If you make the phone calls and you send the emails or ask the questions to the right people and you cover yourself, you should be good. Let's go back to Tim Curtis. He says, I'm doing okay, but boredom is starting to sit in. I'm still working from home, but four walls are getting old. Yeah, well, maybe move your office into a different part of the house so that you don't, I don't know, do it at the kitchen table. We, for the longest time, did not eat at the kitchen table, Jennifer and I, because she was painting cupboards. Beautiful. Well done, Jennifer. Painting, had the cupboards off and was painting them, and that was all covered up in our dining room. So we were eating in the living room, watching television, which we don't normally do. We're not supposed to do that in our house, but so it was kind of fun that we broke some rules in our own house. And we talked about not being able to do certain things. Imagine having to try to have a funeral right now, right? Yeah, that would be a tough one for sure. And there's rules in place for that. And it's definitely like, last night, I remember Jennifer said to me, she goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm okay. She's like, no, you're not. And I said, well, I'm a pretty sociable person, right? And I thought it would bother me more than it has. I like to go out. I like to see people. I like to have a beer with my buddies, all that stuff. And I haven't done any of that. Of course, nobody has. But it hadn't really bothered me up until about last night. Then I was kind of like, I'm starting to miss some people. My children are over at their mom's, So, but I'm okay. Hope you're okay too. Keep in mind, and I want to reiterate this too before I move on to my first guest, to get the information accurately, go to lambtonpublichealth.ca. Okay, they are giving the updates there daily. Currently, right now, as of this morning, 200 cases and 17 fatalities. It's just up. The death rate jumped up again. We didn't see a lot for a while, and then it went to 16. I was on a phone call this morning, a media call with Dr. Sudhit Ranade, and things are starting to come around. But I think that the caution that was put out there is, okay, they're loosening up the reins. This was the thing when they put it out about a week ago. We're going to do this. They didn't say they're on this date at that point, and then I think everybody started taking it like, oh, well, they're going to let us back out, so we might as well take it easy, stay home unless you have to go out, right? So that's the current cases right now. If you want to find out what is open and closed or how we're affected locally, you can go to Sarnia.ca. They have an amazing website there it's a new website compared to the old city website. Great job, City of Sarnia. It's so much better. And they've added this coronavirus page on there as well. There's phone numbers, emails. There's numbers you can call if you want to file a complaint, if you think someone's breaking the rules, if you want to find out what's open and closed, whatever you need, get it right from there. Okay. The Ontario website as well, the government website, has got lots of information. The essentials list is there. And if you have questions from there, as I did, call the 1-800 number. Okay. There's hotlines. So there's information out there for sure. By the way, I just got another one in my Facebook Messenger about 10 minutes before I went live that I got the cure for the coronavirus. Again, come on, folks. Be real here, okay? And if you're having the stress, we had some folks from the Family Counseling Center here on a little while back. There is a 24-hour phone number to call. Doesn't matter what time of day, right? 24 hours means 24 hours. Someone will take your call and they will listen. And it's, of course, completely confidential. So take advantage of all of this that's happening out there. All right, I'm going to move on to my first guest, and nice to see everybody adapting to what's happening out there in the world and still moving forward. One of the things that is probably on a lot of people's mind right now is money. How do you handle your money? And this is really a nice lead into how maybe we should be teaching our young folks more about money as we move forward. And I'm going to bring on Jenne Wasson from Junior Achievement. Thanks for being here, Jen.
Thanks for having me.
This is, you kind of heard my lead in there to the adaptation that we're all going through. I mean, it's an old conversation, but it's still a new thing. And especially to organizations like Junior Achievement, who's been around over 50 years now.
Correct. We've been around over 50 years in our area and over 100 years internationally. So there's a lot of information we have to share that we've learned over the years and changed over the years as the times change.
Yeah. And we're talking about Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario, of course. And it was it last year? I didn't get my dates right. That actually a couple of the Junior Achievements, including London, kind of combined to make it that, right?
We did. So we have been Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario in our area for a while. We amalgamated with London as well, which just gives us more resources to pull on. They may know how to do something that we don't know how to do, et cetera. So we joined as one bigger, stronger Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I remember I still had that email from last year that when I was going through preparing for it, I was like, oh yeah, that was good. So that's obviously worked out well, especially in times like now, the more strength in numbers, I guess. How are you adapting as someone who's a part of that, and maybe the rest of the staff of JA adapting to the current situation?
Sure. Well, we're all working from home, as many people are, and we've been able to shift our programming, which I'm sure we'll talk about in just a minute, to be able to deliver in a new way. So we've been very busy getting that shift to work so that we can continue to help students while they can't be in school. So we have not stopped, slowed down anything in our time so far anyway.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, and that's one of the reasons we're here to talk to you today is about what you're offering, some free online programs and when we say students, we're talking about like grade 3 up to what about grade 12?
Yeah, for sure. We have something for everyone in those grade levels, and there's things that people beyond those grade levels could also learn for sure. But our usual model, most of our programming we do within schools most of the time. We have incredible volunteers that come in and deliver information on financial literacy, on work readiness or entrepreneurship that kids don't get typically in schools in the same way. So it's like an add-on to what they're already learning in school. But of course, without being able to be in school, we don't have those volunteers coming in and students will be missing out on that information. Luckily, Junior Achievement of Canada was already in process with trying to get together some online programming, but they were planning to launch it, like a year from now, way down the road. But they had at least the structure in place to begin to build it. So we all worked together across Canada to transform that information very quickly to be able to build online programming. So almost all of our programming is now available online for free. And we have a few more programs coming. Yeah, free is good. And students can access it directly. Parents can access it to share with their kids. Or we also have some schools signing up as a group, and then they can go through it as a group with their teacher.
Well, that's nice to hear. I'm just going to track back to a little bit of what you said, about it, prepared to get things in the school. I've had this conversation with many different financial advisors that I know. I've got books over here on my bookshelf from people, and it's youth and finances. Why don't we teach more of that in our schools? Dare I ask that question?
You can ask. It is an ongoing conversation, and it's so essential. And we talk a lot about Junior Achievement being a proactive charity. Many of the problems that people face later in life is because they get behind.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're going to be making as adults in the career they're choosing. They don't know what their lifestyle can be. They don't know how to manage money, and it all kind of falls from there. And so we are kind of a proactive measure to prevent that cycle of poverty. And we certainly think it should be there more. We try to get into schools as much as possible. We actually have programs at 3 different grade levels that are strictly financial literacy planning. So grade 3, grade 7, and anytime high school, but we usually do it for grade 10s. So we're kind of hitting them 3 different ways at 3 different ages where they can sort of understand it in a different way.
Yeah. Well, because I go back to, here we go, back in the 80s when I was in high school. And of course, we still had checks then. We didn't have debit cards. What was a credit rating and what was a mortgage and why do I need to know that? And I'm sure, of course, for all the years that JA has been around, having to adapt, like you don't talk about checks anymore. You probably, how has that progressed along the way? And as JA obviously has been able to keep up with that?
Yeah, we're always updating our programming to fit. And that's such an important thing because kids now they think money grows on trees in a way. I mean, they think it's on a card, it's on an app, and they don't understand. They often don't even see cash to understand the value of that, right? So we've adapted along the way. We have interactive games that people can play to start to understand. We also have one of my favorite programs is called Economics for Success, and we usually deliver it in grade 8 in our area, somewhere between there. It's still good in early high school, but it's basically a combination of financial planning with career planning. So, what are your interests? What type of careers fit those interests and your personality, et cetera? And then what are the chances of income and what does it actually cost to live? What's the cost of living and how will those balance out? So then it helps kids learn what they need to do and helps them stay in school actually, because they go, okay, I know I need this education to get what I want, to be able to live the way I want, and go from there.
And you talk about entrepreneurship, and I see you go as low as grade 3 for that as well.
We do.
I found that number very interesting. Are we seeing? I can honestly say I've seen younger, like teenagers and younger adults, getting involved in self-employment, I guess you could call it. I heard one the other day. I think it was Doug Ford actually said his daughter sells cookies online. Right? Are we seeing more and more of that because of the online world?
I think so. I mean, the kids are definitely, they're quick these days, and you teach them a few things about it and they're ready. They're like, oh, I have a means to sell this now. I can reach out to people quickly. We typically run camps, and stay tuned for news about our camps and how we're going to do it this summer. But, and those start at kind of age 8, and and they run their own business for a week. They learn all the basic skills for running a business. They decide what they want to sell, how much they want to sell it for, how they want to market it. And goes from there. And it's a mini version of our company program, which is a bigger entrepreneurship piece that they do as a company together. I
think it's fantastic. And, I would say that I wish I had that when I was a kid, but I guess it was around. I just didn't know. It's been around that long, right?
It has, but it's also added on things over the years. I think probably it was more focused on that entrepreneurship, a company program piece, which is an after-school program for us, that we do have some in-school companies too. That's our flagship program, and that's probably what was around more when you were a kid. The building a program together after school. Yeah.
Yeah. What about the community, as far as community partners for Junior Achievement? Do you reach out to the community and ask for their help? Do you bring in the financial advisors? What kind of support do you get for that?
We do, absolutely. And that's the one thing. Our online programs are great. They're fun. They're interactive. They're they have great education. They can never replace our volunteers that come into the classroom, because then the volunteers are right in front of you with, if you have a question, you can ask them. And many of them do come from business companies, financial sector. We have some great supporters like RBC and TD locally in Sarnia. And it's just that piece is missing, but we're getting it wherever we can. One of the cool things that we're still working on, so check back in a couple of weeks on our online, we have a program called World of Choices, which is career planning for, we usually deliver it to grade 10, 11, around there. And it's usually a conference, but now we're going to be getting videos from mentors in all sorts of different fields, including some of our traditional volunteers. And they're going to be on this online program, and you want to know about a particular career, they'll be there with a video and sharing more information then. So that's not quite ready yet because we're still gathering some videos, but it will be ready soon.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's great to have those partners. You need that for the support. But I always like to ask the money question as we're talking about money. JA has got to need some money to put on these services, et cetera. Where does your support come from? Is it government? Is it community? How does that look for everybody?
We're not government or United Way funded or anything, but we do have good support from our community partners. A lot of those corporations that I mentioned, we do sometimes get grants from the government, a Trillium grant we do have coming up for that. But it's all that fundraising. We run events, we have, and those corporate partners and incredible support. Some alumni that recognize what our program has brought to their life and they want to pay it forward.
Fantastic. Now, coming out of all of this, whatever that means, coming out of this, whether we have a new normal, get back to normal, whatever, do you see junior achievement still, we've kind of all been forced into this thing, right, of working from home and doing more online, virtual things like this. Do you see yourselves continuing that on even after coming out of office? Have you learned some things that go, maybe we could adapt that and that's just more economical?
Definitely. I think we're finding we're finding the wins here where we can find them, right? So as I said, the online programs were already in the works, but we weren't expecting them for quite a while. That said, we were planning on always using them as kind of in conjunction with those in-person volunteers. But with how we're working now, we're going to see what other things can we bring in from what we've learned, even how we work differently as an office. I don't think anyone's going to be going to the office sick anymore, probably anywhere. Because we've now learned that we can successfully work from home, and that's kind of across the board globally that this change has been pushed upon us. But we'll take advantage of what changes we can find that make sense.
So this has maybe created some new opportunities that can be embraced by junior achievement and then passed forward into the community as well?
I'd say so. Our mission is to prepare students to succeed in the global economy. And that means always being on top of what's happening globally, what the trends are in the marketplace, what we can be doing differently and changing and adapting. So this is another piece of that puzzle.
Yeah. What about people, if they want to get involved and support junior achievement and say, hey, I'm an expert in this area. Are you looking for somebody do you look for that as well? And can people reach out to you?
Absolutely. We're always looking for volunteers. The in-person volunteering won't be happening for a little while, but as soon as schools are back open and they're able to let us in, we'll be doing that again. So our website is jaswo.org. And that's where you can find information about volunteering, about the programs we have. And there's also a link on there to the online programs, or you can go straight to the online programs at jacampus.org.
So jaswo.org, I got that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And then for enrolling as well, that's the one there as well. Perfect.
Yes, exactly. And we are always looking for support financially, volunteers in any way, whether it's a future event or we're doing something online in the for World Choices or in the classroom in the future. So please do reach out at jaswo.org or check out our website. Yeah.
Very good. Jen, you're getting good at these interviews, these online interviews. Is this a new thing for you as well?
Online interviews? Sure, yes.
You're doing a fantastic job, and thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that we might have missed that you want to throw out there before I let you go?
We just want to thank everyone in the community for everything they're doing. It's incredible to see the first responders the people working on the front line, and then our teachers and how they've adapted. We work with them so closely, and seeing, kind of how they've been able to adapt and change, and the parents adapting and changing. It's a wonderful thing to see, and we're proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Jenne Wasson, thank you so much for joining me here today. I do appreciate your time, and keep doing what you and your team are doing with Junior Achievement and teaching the young folks about money. Very important.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome back anytime. Bye for now. There you go, now I can't talk. It's catching. Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario talking with us, doing some great things. I always wondered why we didn't talk about money in school and all that stuff. And it's great to see this opportunity being offered by Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario. I'll show you the website. Once again, if you want to enroll some students or find out more information, there's a place to go. And if you just want to find out general information and how you can support JA of Southwestern Ontario, and maybe you've got some expertise to share with them, that's certainly the way to go. Thanks again, Jenne Wasson. All right. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, and before I forget, I did have a note here to say this, but I wanted to say, and Jen kind of reminded me, it is Nurses Week, National Nurses Week this week, starting today. So yes, thank you to all of our nurses and PSWs and frontline workers. We hear that every day, but I don't think we want to stop saying that, because I've got a neighbor who does that, and we've all got somebody who's in that world right now, and more than ever, we're relying on them. So don't forget, this is National Nurses Week, and find a way to make a nice post, do something to show the appreciation for nurses and frontline workers, not just in our community, but all over, right? Okay, well, talking earlier, as I mentioned, I had a chance to catch up with Mayor Mike Bradley just over the weekend. He gave me some time on Saturday, actually. He's a busy fellow right now, as along with many other people included in the primary control group. And I was able to catch up with Mayor, and he gave us about 20 minutes of his time and answered some very good questions for us. We're going to go out into the community right now and take a look, and then I'll be back with my next guest. Well, here today, reconnecting with Mayor Mike Bradley, who we talked to about 30 days ago when all of this began, if we remember. St. Paddy's Day, I guess it was. And Mike Bradley, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity anytime I can talk to the public and just update them on what's been happening over the last almost 2 months now.
Yeah, well, certainly lots out there, and people can find lots of information. Whether it's accurate information is another thing at times, right? So we rely on folks like yourself to bring us up to date.
Well, Dave, we go through the same thing. I mean, I'm inundated with emails from different people, different places. And there's many different interpretations of some of the things that are happening here. One of the big frustrations is that the only two actions the city directly has taken is the fire ban, which has been lifted, and the boat has been opened. All the other things, from closing beaches to park amenities, the distancing guidelines, are all provincial. We, however, are in the position of trying to interpret those for the public, especially on the essential and non-essential list. And we have expressed to the province a few times our frustration about the lack of clarity on some of the rules about who can do what and all that. It is getting better, because as the province starts to slowly reopen, I think they understand they've got to be very, very clear on what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah, well, I like how you pointed that out, because I'll tell you an example. I called the 1-800 number to the province on the essential list, just to see where my business stood, and the answer I got was a vague one, and it was basically it was even said to me, well, as you can see, sir, this was written very vaguely. At the end of the day, what they told me was, you decide if you're an essential service, and then if an officer of the law, whether it be a police officer, a bylaw officer, whatever that looks like, decides that you are in error for being present at something, I guess, then you have the right, like a speeding ticket, to go and fight it and do that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, so it's not really the answer I was looking for. And then I thought, how busy is our court system going to be after all of this?
Well, I think what will happen, I think some number of the charges probably won't proceed because of time and other issues. It had to be done. I mean, there has to be some penalty for people's actions if they're flagrant. And I know, and I can't talk about specific cases in Sarnia,
Sure.
but the feedback I've got is in most cases, that there was a lot of education. There was a lot of effort to try to get people to understand. And after about 4 weeks of education, it was decided, look, we're just going to move forward and take action when needed. But if you really put it in perspective, Dave, we've had over 600 to 800 contacts to our COVID hotline, most looking for information. Out of that, there's been only 4 or 5 charges laid.
Yeah.
So that, they tend to get a lot of attention, but it has been confusing. For example, in Chatham-Kent, the police chief there is saying he will not tolerate the parades that we've seen in different communities where people line up and go by and, happy birthday, grandma,
Happy birthday, yeah.
anniversaries and all that. So different places, different things. In Holdham and Norfolk, the public medical officer of health has created a lot of controversy. He's banning individuals from outside the region coming to their cottages. That hasn't happened. So there's a lot of inconsistency, and then people pick up on what's going on somewhere else and says, well, why is that not happening
here? Yeah.
It should be happening here. So but I'm also trying to be really fair about this with the province, is that this just hit us. I mean, it was the COVID storm just came along and just devastated us, and then had to decide what you're going to do and what you could do. And that's one reason we took the action on the boat ramp and on the fire ban. We felt that we had to do everything we could to mitigate contact between people. And I'll use the boat ramp as an example. It is not, in my view, an essential service. And when other essential services are struggling to survive, how do you allow a non-essential service to be in the community? And but we reached the point where the province now starting to open up some of the rules that we thought it was time, and we were looking at the Victoria Day weekend coming up fairly soon, and we had good response on the fire ban. Not that people liked it, and I didn't realize how many people in this community liked it. However, the message got across very clearly that if you're going to do this now, you know what the rules are. You know that you have to be very careful about where you build a fire and how you interact with your neighbors. Over the years, we've had a lot of complaints from people that have health issues with breathing, and people in their neighborhood who decide to set fires all the time in their backyard. So anyhow, it was a good decision to make, and it was a consensus group decision of the primary control group, which is the police chief, the fire chief, myself, the CEO of the city, and a number of other people. And we work very well together. They're a professional group, and there's no pleasure in taking away anyone's rights and restrictions. And I'll give you past week we discussed, should we start to open up the parking lots in the parks? Well, we really can't until the province says you can go to a beach or you can use the amenities in parks. I may not have someone saying, well, why would you guys tape off those benches? We didn't want to do that, but it was the province said we can't have people sitting on benches. So it is very confusing. I fully understand that. I think we've got a much better sense ourselves now on what the rules are. And as we emerge from this, it's going to be more interesting. I'll give you another example. The province has said now, if you're on a main street, a street of any type in your retail, you can open and have curbside service. So I asked the CEO and the primary control group, can we then make sure that the parking authority by law enforcement isn't penalizing people for doing that? Because, for example, in downtown, there's a lot of businesses that are on the main street or on Front Street.
Yeah, right.
But you don't want people getting tickets because they just pulled up to pick something up, right? So yeah. I think what we'll probably do is pull back on the enforcement for like 20 or 30 days in the hope that by the time we get them, there'll be more things happening, like you can go into a store if you're meeting certain rules and regulations. But it's difficult. It's disheartening because people remember how things were.
Yeah.
Now in this new world where you have to be 6 feet away from people, it's a struggle. And I understand it's a struggle for me. I try everything I can not to go to the supermarket or the drugstore, and I've been doing that now for about 3 weeks. I just don't want to be in that environment. It's because it is so difficult to adapt to, because we're all social people. We're people that like to talk to people, like to be close to people, and have that taken away it's a real struggle for all of us, I think.
Yeah, well, and you make a good point, and we're even the introverted ones, we need that social interaction at some point, and we need to hug our kids, and we need to all that stuff. And you talked before about the vast majority has been cooperating. Of course, there's some in the middle. It seemed like there were some people though that were like, oh yeah, that virus thing, but it's probably not me. We're probably okay, you know. And I've even thought that myself about it's probably okay if I hug my kids, but I'm just not gonna right now because I'm not sure at the same time, and I'm not willing to take that risk. Let's go on the security side of things. With maybe with Sarnia Police, have we seen like overall? Have you seen an increase in crime, or has everything been about status quo with all of this?
Well, in some areas, it's unfortunately, sadly, there's been more family calls, more domestic calls. And I noticed in Waterloo, for example, they're up 40%. And you've got a number of factors there. You've got the factors of people being contained within their apartments or their homes. You've also got the one that people forget about. One of the big issues behind domestic abuse is financial. And I always remember a friend of mine ran the women's interval home here back in the 90s. And I had this image in my head that the worst time for the interval home for people coming in was Christmas. And she said to me, no, it's not. It's March, April, when the credit card bills become due.
Right.
And then all the stress of how are we going to pay for this, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's a factor in what's going on. We've been fortunate. We've had a really lousy spring. Weather is a factor in crime.
Well, we had summer last weekend.
Yes, for day. But for the police, every day we get the report and from fire. It's been pretty quiet overall. And again, if you don't have people outside, if you don't have people going through the community, you're not going to have the same level of crime you had in the past. So that's a good thing. But as we emerge from this, and as the community starts to pick up, and the province starts to pick up its pace, you'll start to see a return to what in the past has been sort of the normal crime rate.
Yeah. A lot of events, obviously, important to businesses, but nonprofit organizations having to cancel. Certainly, that's a financial impact as well, and a social impact as well. And a lot of seem to be adapting. They're taking that to that virtual world, but the things even important to the city. Let's come back out of last week where Sarnia didn't really get to celebrate 106 years of a birthday.
Oh, that's true. The big one for all of us is Canada Day. And the point I tried to make on that, the city has canceled Canada Day celebrations. We haven't canceled Canada Day.
Right.
We are looking at a virtual Canada Day. People can still do some of the things they used to do at their own home or whatever. And maybe by then the restrictions by the province may be loosened up a bit for more personal interaction. But yeah, celebrating the anniversary. We had that great street party back in 2014 where we had 10,000 people downtown to celebrate the anniversary. I noted it on social media, but it's all these things. And most of the events through July that we as a city have canceled in our parks and stuff, we're self-canceling anyhow. And I was talking to, I won't name the event, last night, one of the organizers of a significant event this summer. And, they said they're looking for that crystal ball thing. I said, I can't give you an answer, nor will I. That's going to be your judgment. But if you do proceed, in the circumstances we are, you're probably not even going to get 3/4 of the people that used to come out, just because of the concern about interaction with other people. And I personally believe you won't see anything professional in sports and concerts until next year. Even then, it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. It always comes back to, Dave, until there's a vaccine, our level of stress and security will not be there, no matter what you do on the guidelines and everything else. But it is. There's lots of things you want to celebrate. Mother's Day. It's going to be a totally different Mother's Day for those people who want to celebrate their mother. It's just going to be different. And I think people adapt to that in the hope that next year we'll be back to a more normal situation.
Yeah, well, in this past week, we were down at the Legion. I was able to live stream the VE Day 75th anniversary service. But even the Branch 62 Legion had this huge party, if you will, big band, orchestra, and all kinds of shenanigans, if you will, to support that. And that was missed by many. And I noticed that. Just by the amount of views that we were able to get on that. Those kind of things are important to people.
Well, there's a real parallel between the end of the war, VE Day, which is Victory in Europe Day. When it happened in Sarnia, we had lost over 180 citizens in a population of less than 20,000 people.
Yeah.
There was the mayor at the time, Mayor Hippel, gave authority at 4 o'clock for a parade in the downtown. 3,000 or 4,000 people showed up. And he also was very clear to be respectful, because while there was celebration, he said there are many people in this community that are bereaved, and we still had people serving. And, this time we look back and say, oh, the war was over. No, it wasn't, because we still had to deal with the Japanese in the Far East. And that was looked at as going to be taking years because of the nature of the location and the nation itself. But it was a big day for us. But when that happened, there were pictures of people in the street hugging and kissing and everything else.
Yeah.
My parallel is this, if I can make the point, is in the COVID war, when it's over, we won't be hugging and kissing in the street.
Wow. Yeah.
You compare them as wars, right? But I do think it's great. I'm glad you live streamed. I think people need that interaction. And I think that, and earlier this week, we had the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Holland, Netherlands.
Right.
That was a big deal, because there was thousands of Canadians that served there, and there were thousands of Canadians that died there. And after the war, there were thousands of Dutch people that came to Canada, many of them to Sarnia. And to this day, we have a very strong Dutch community, hardworking, great contributors to our community and to our country. So there's a lot of parallels when you look back at history about where we are today and why we are today. And that is a good thing to remember. I think all of us need to look back, because we're repeating this. 1918, the Spanish flu went throughout the world and killed 50 million people. Sarnia was shut down. You couldn't go to a motion picture. You couldn't go any place. And here we are all these years later, and we're in a very similar situation.
And at least we've got Skype and FaceTime and Facebook and all that other stuff.
Hey, don't forget Netflix. I was telling a friend.
Oh, yes, right. Oh, I got Netflix, Amazon Prime, I got Disney Plus, I got all of them.
One for them. I'm not exaggerating. I think the anxiety and the tolerance level would be much higher if you're being sent to your home. You need things, because otherwise, I think people would be struggling more than they are today.
For sure. We talked about a lot of things here, and we've kind of reviewed a bit of what's happened since all this began. I've talked to some people about mental health. We had Mental Health Week we just finished. I talked to Paula Remzimmer, and their concerns there are they're not hearing as much from the public as they normally would, even though there's still all this access there. Coming out of this is their concern. I know we don't have the crystal ball. That's the cliche remark, but are we ready to come out of this? Will we be ready?
David, it will depend on how the province handles it, and the federal government to some degree, because you're seeing now across the country, Saskatchewan's in a different place than PEI. PEI is in a different place than we are.
Yeah.
And I would say Ontario's been very cautious, and that's not a criticism. I think they're taking that slow approach, which is the right way to do it. I mean, I was just talking to a friend in Australia, and they were talking about they had 90 deaths there from COVID. And I was saying, we had 16 in Sarnia alone, and thousands across this country. So a cautious approach, because the last thing we want to have happen is that we theoretically exit, and then all of a sudden there's a second wave. And then we have to take people back to where they were when this first hit us 2 months ago. I think that would create incredible mental health issues. I do think the other observation, the primary control group's been meeting for 50 days now, every day, 7 days a week by phone, is that the first few weeks, everyone was trying to figure out what was going on, how real was this and all that. And then we started to see some restrictions on people's movements and things like that. I think in the last few weeks, I've witnessed more acceptance. This is the way it is. And the risk is great if we do not try to follow the guidelines and then try to isolate ourselves to some degree. So as we exit, there'll be those that want to rush to it. And there'll be others that say, look, I'm still going to be very timid in my activities and my life. Yeah. And I want to point out on Tuesday, we're doing another one of our town hall meetings, which you've covered in the past. This time the focus is going to be on the economy and the economic exit. And I am really concerned. That's why City Council, to its credit, we cut $1.7 million in costs. No summer students, no seasonals, 160 positions. And it's going to have a community impact. We've also frozen 20 vacant positions at the city and not hiring. We're also cutting capital projects and other things. We're doing more than I would think most communities. The county refused to even open their budget. But I believe when we hit July and August, we're really going to see the damage to the business community. Yeah. We're really going to see the businesses that simply cannot go forward or say to themselves, say you're a restaurant. and you exit this. And then you're told for the next year you can only have 50% capacity. Like, it's tough enough in the business to start with, right? So I'm expecting July and August, we're going to see the damage significantly to the business community and the default, which is going back to what I said earlier about what we've done as a city. And we've just extended the property tax deadline for another month to give people some breathing room, is that we really haven't hit that part of the storm as badly yet. We've had the health part of the storm, unfortunately, with 16 deaths. But I think you'll see in the next few months, sadly, businesses simply say we cannot continue, or it's just not worth our effort trying to come back, especially in small business, because it's a challenge, best of days, right? So that is a big part of the mental health issue. So that stress that's on families and businesses and is huge. And that I think you'll see more evidence of as we move forward, unfortunately.
Well, tough decisions that have to be made. I don't think anybody's envying anybody like you in your position right now. But the community is at the forefront of the minds of the primary control group and the safety, and I'm sure that that's appreciated. Mike, before I let you go, is there anything else you want to wrap up with?
Well, it's been a difficult time for everyone. No one's isolated from the difficult times. I have great faith in going back to when you raised the anniversary of the city, the 106th anniversary as a city. We've been a town since 1857, a city since 1914. But if you look at what's happened in the last 100 years, 106 years, after we became a city in May of 1914, within 6 months, the First World War broke out, and we lost 180 Sarnians. Then we had the Second World War. We had the Great Depression. We had the great expansion here economically with the valley. And so we've gone through tornadoes, we've gone through depressions, recessions. We've also had great prosperity. And we survived, and we emerged. And I always think we all think we're just in the storm and it's never happened before. And I have great faith and confidence in the people of Sarnia to emerge from this. It will be different, but I do believe in the end we will be stronger.
Yeah. Mike, thanks very much. And thanks to you and the primary control group and so many people for your leadership. And staying in touch with us here. We'll look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Well, the conversation with our Mayor, Mike Bradley, this past Saturday, he gave me his time. And thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Lots of great information in there. And if you want to find out more about what's happening and the decisions that are being made, again, you can go to sarnia.ca. There's lots of information in there as well. And as Mayor Mike Bradley did mention, tomorrow, Tuesday at 10:30, it'll be live on the City of Sarnia Facebook page. It'll also be live here on my page, The Show with David Burrows, and our sister page, The Video Show Network. And throughout the city on different pages, you'll be able to watch a town hall meeting happening tomorrow. This is the third online town hall meeting that the city's put on. And this time, as Mayor Bradley mentioned, they'll be talking a little bit more about the financial side of things and how it's going to impact our city coming out of all of this and some tough decisions they've had to make there. Again, tomorrow, 10:30 a.m., you can watch that online here on The Show with David Burrows. One of the other things that was mentioned in there as well, and I'm sure some are feeling it, is the effect on relationships and children, young children. There's mental health side, but what about the physical, maybe abuse that's happening out there? What about people that are living in a situation that they would like to get away from, but they really just can't? Well, we're going to talk about both sides of that coin with both of my guests who've been patiently waiting in the lobby there. Thank you so much from the Children's Aid Society. Dawn, is it Flagel?
Yes.
I'm glad I got that right. And of course,
Yep,
Angie Marks. Thanks for being here, ladies.
Thanks for having us. Hi, Angie.
Angie, can we hear you?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear Dawn. I don't hear Angie.
Oh, my mic is on.
Oh, now I can
Oh,
hear.
now I can hear you. I'm just going to drop you down one quick second and then bring you right back. Sometimes we're going to do this. There we are. Everybody's here?
I'm going to lose that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you, Ange. Okay, perfect. So, Dawn, you're from the Children's Aid Society, and Angie, you're with the Women's Interval Home and the Sexual Assault Survivor Center.
Correct.
So, yes, I imagine, as you kind of heard me leading into that, are you seeing some extra need out there, and are people reaching out to you, or you like the mental health side where they're not, and that's concerning? Dawn, let's start with you from Children's Aid Society.
Sure. So we're similar to the mental health side in that we've seen a 50% reduction in the calls to the agency for kids and families. And we don't think that the need is less. We think that because kids aren't being seen like they usually would in schools and daycares and different extracurricular activities, for example, that's what's resulting in the decrease in calls to the agency. So
Right.
worrying in terms of what's going to happen when kids go back to school and are seen by other people again, and what they're currently potentially living through right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, everybody's going online, you maybe saw me talking earlier with Jenne Wasson, sorry, I don't know, I can't talk today.
Yeah.
Earlier, and even, doing interviews with people like Mayor Bradley and others.
Mm-hmm.
How is Children's Aid Society adapting in that way?
So we have switched to almost all virtual visits or connecting with people through video chats or through phone, whatever really the children and the families are most comfortable with. Not all kids and families actually have access to technology, right? So we did supply, I'd say about 75 phones to families and kids who need them so that we could continue to have virtual contact with them. And then in those situations where it is an emergency and quite serious, then we do have a face-to-face team that will go out with the proper PPE to go out and see kids and families as they need to.
Right. What about community partners? Is it a tougher situation for Children's Aid Society to get community partners because of the big confidentiality issue, or is that still something? How do you reach out that way?
Oh, I have to say in this community, we have phenomenal community partners, and we all work really, really closely together. And so we just, we either talk to the family and get permission to connect together, or we just work together to create services and supports in partnership. Angie and I connect quite well together. We had a working group looking at abuse in general across the community: elder abuse, women abuse, child abuse. So we got out some good communication and let people know we were open and able to provide services. We also partner with the Inn of the Good Shepherd. As you know, they do a lot of community outreach. They do food boxes. So we partnered with them to make sure that kids and families who are associated with our agency can get additional food if they need it. So lots of great partnerships in this community.
Great. I'll let you take that if you want, and I'm going to go over to Angie and bring you into the conversation. Angie, what are you seeing on your side of things as well? Is it similar to what Dawn's talking about, or are there differences there?
Very much the same. Actually, when I was listening earlier to Mayor Mike, one of the comments he had made was the financial stress within a relationship. And compare that to a healthy relationship, and now you throw in additional stressors on top of isolation, which I say is a dream for an abuser, because that's one of their greatest tactics, is to be able to isolate a woman from supports. So, we're seeing a lot of calls that have been reduced. But in looking at, before the pandemic came, we were at capacity. And starting March 13th, everybody started, the pandemic was starting to roll out. We saw people really seeking other supports outside of the shelter because they knew that they were going to be enclosed. However, what we weren't sure of is what our service model was going to look like when we established or were able to develop something that was going to provide social distancing. So in answer to your question, overall, our numbers have been reduced. However, we still have people that are accessing our crisis lines. I would say that our calls are pretty status quo, and the severity of the call that we're receiving has increased.
Yeah. So that being said, with one side being lowered and another side being increased, let's go to the side that's been lowered. As I mentioned, I talked with Paula Rem Zimmer who deals with from the mental health side of things. They're really concerned coming out of this. And feel free, either one of you, to take this one on. Are you prepared for, say, a big influx of need again? Is it going to jump right up, and are you ready to handle that? I guess is another good question.
We're anticipating it. I don't know, Angie, well, what will she'll say, but we are anticipating an increase again once kids go back to school, but also like the accumulation of the stress and the pressure over a series of months. So the economic impact, the financial impact on families, the physical distancing, the isolation, the impact that has on people's mental health. We also work with a lot of families with substance misuse, and that we're worried about that increasing as well for families as they look for ways to cope with, what we're all kind of facing right now. So we are anticipating an increase at some point and doing our best to get ready for that.
Yeah.
So we've
Angie?
not laid any staff off, in spite of the reduction, we have not laid staff off because we think it's just a matter of time before the need increases again.
Yeah, for sure. Angie, what about you?
I would say very similar. We're anticipating a huge surge once women are able to leave their homes and access resources. So the slightest risk, as we continue to see a little bit of a lift, we're starting to see numbers grow, but we are anticipating they're going to continue to grow. We are hoping, we're actually established to be able to maintain our secondary location, and primarily because we know that there's going to be a surge and we want to ensure that we're able to run over our capacity. So we are funded for 17 beds, but we have the ability to staff for 24, and we are looking at maintaining that status.
Right. Okay, so let me ask a couple of difficult questions. Well, it might be not difficult for you, but because both your agencies, or I guess all three agencies here, really deal with very sensitive situations, and situations that maybe it's not commonly talked about. I think, it's kind of like this, maybe, we don't want to talk about those kind of things. And I think that's why it's important to have you here, that we are talking about those kind of things. How do we encourage, as a community, people to talk about if they have a need for any of these services? And let's talk about reaching out anonymously right now. Okay, they can go to a website. That's great. But then where does the information go from there? And how do you reassure? Like, there's a lot going on in these organizations right now, and people really do need. And let's talk about the confidentiality side of things first. What kind of steps get taken there in this type of environment right now that we're in?
Okay. Dawn, did you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
Go ahead, Angie. Yep.
So, for us, it's really about making it okay and making it our business. In fact, there's a campaign called Make It Our Business, which educates and provides awareness within our communities to know that it's okay, not necessarily to intervene, but to learn how to assist a woman or have an opportunity to open up conversation or some sort of dialogue to connect her to resources or services. I strongly suggest any neighbor, friend, or family, if you are concerned of anybody that was already pre-existing abusive relationship, to make that connection, ask closed-ended questions to identify if she needs services, and to call 911 if you're seriously concerned about her risk. The risk for women has increased drastically. And I like that you brought up sort of the taboo, because although I think that we've done a fairly good job in sort of eliminating a little bit of those stigmas or the ability to be able to converse, I think one thing that relates to a bit of that taboo or something that happens within our is if somebody hasn't experienced domestic violence, whether it be directly within their relationship or a friend or a family member or whatever that looks like, then it's kind of something that we don't think about it happening in our community. Like, people can't actually connect with it. And
Right.
it's imperative that we, listen to the victim blaming that happens within our sexual violence and understand domestic violence, and that you don't have to be directly involved to be a big support of it. And that's how we're going to maintain our safety within our community.
Yeah, well, you kind of answered another part of my question there is how can we help as a neighbor or community, right? And it's good to know that, I guess, as a neighbor or family member, whatever that looks like, that it is okay for us to reach out to. Because I think a lot of times, and you said, well, it's none of my business, or whatever the reason is to turn the head or close the eyeballs. Are you seeing more of the community do that? Is that stigma going away, or have we still got a long way to go to erase that?
I think that for the most part, we've always had community members call into our crisis lines to learn how to be able to support, whether it be their daughter, their friend, or their neighbor. That's been ongoing. I think that those numbers could potentially increase. I don't think they're at a level where we know that domestic violence and sexual violence is happening within our community or across our province. So I think that we need to do better as an organization to ensure that we're looking for different ways or different platforms that we're able to raise education and awareness and really look at more of a preventative piece and focus for our community to create a preventative strategy versus a reactive strategy is what I would really like to see happen.
All right, very good. Dawn, over to you. I guess, what's your response to this?
Yeah, we have something similar. It's actually a province-wide message, and it's shared with community partners. And it's a simple one that we're here to help. And so the best thing for people to kind of realize is the earlier they can call for help for their family, the better, whether it's they call us or Women's Interval Home or, the mental health organization, or they seek help for substance misuse. And a bit of a myth busting in terms of children's aid. Most of what we do is actually not abuse. Physical abuse and sexual abuse are very, very small percentages of the work that we're doing. And in those situations for the community members, if you are worried that a child is being physically harmed or sexually harmed, call us. Absolutely call us so that we can work with the police around investigating and ensuring that a child is safe. The vast majority of what we do are work with families who are struggling. They're struggling with, I've said it already, substance misuse. They're struggling with addictions. They're struggling with conflict. We do also have situations where there's intimate partner violence happening and kids are in the home as well. And we have families struggling with parent-teen conflict. And we notice when people call us early, we're in a better position to be able to help and connect them with other resources in the community. And it prevents things from getting, much worse. And then it's a lot harder to intervene in a helpful way. So that our message would be, call us if you are struggling. We'll connect you with other resources. And right now, in particular, people in the community, keep an eye out for kids and families. And if you think a family is struggling, offer help. It's a simple, can I do something for you? Are you okay? And then if the worries ramp up and you feel like you need to call the Children's Aid, then do so. But I think we have to kind of drop the shaming and make it okay, whether you're asking for mental health assistance or, Angie services or the services of the CAS, make it okay to reach out and say, I'm struggling and I need some help.
Well, you make a good point because I think, and not to pick on the Children's Aid Society here, but I will for a moment. I'm sure you're used to that, right? But it's a positive one. Well, okay, Children's Aid Society, we think of abuse right away. I think is probably, well, if a child's being abused, that's Children's Aid Society, right? And so I like that you pointed that out. And okay, we got to, I like to say, stomp the stigmas. We've got all these stigmas going on. But then there's that embarrassment of, well, I don't know if I should be calling Children's Aid Society because I don't know if that's really that terrible, or I don't know, and then there's that doubt of, do I pick up that phone and call the number, or, well, I don't want to get anybody in trouble because it's not that big. Obviously what I'm talking about. How do we remove that from the barrier, that phone that can weigh like a brick?
Yeah.
How do we remove that so that we do call you?
Yeah, I get it. It is hard for people to pick up the phone, and the self-doubts that come in. And I guess in my head, it's, you're weighing your own embarrassment or getting it wrong with the safety and well-being of a child. So, always we would say err on
It should be a no-brainer, right?
but it's hard for people. And we have families who call us themselves, and that's really the ideal when a parent or a caregiver picks up the phone themselves and says, I'm struggling and I need some assistance. People go to the worst case scenario that we're going to take people's kids away. And, I know that. It rarely happens. All of the kids in Sarnia, Lambton, and the First Nation communities, we have about 60 children in care right now. We used to have close to 300. We now have 60. So there's been a lot of changes that have happened in terms of supporting kids with their families so they can stay with their families. And sometimes they're staying with grandparents or aunts and uncles. But kids need their families, and we know that. And so we do whatever we can to support them staying with their families.
Right. Angie, I see you nodding your head along with this as well. And I'm guessing similar would apply to your organizations as to don't be afraid to call. I guess the difference is the person who's being abused calling as to the neighbor calling, or is it the same? Explain that.
Well, and I was nodding because our partnership with CAS is, great in this area where sometimes we're getting a call where children are witnessing an abuse, so not directly being impacted by abuse.
Right.
Have the opportunity to still, we have a due diligence to report to CAS, and so they're helpful in being able to address those issues as well. So there's like a very strong partnership, and one of the things that we do. And that really has shifted. And another reason I was really nodding is to have the women make that connection to call CAS, because when I think back, years ago, as starting in this field, we would take on that control of, we need to call CAS and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And that's really shifted where there is a lot of collaborative work with all of our organizations, especially for us with CAS, but even our mental health partners, to be able to make those resources work versus, making them just somebody else that's going to enter their life and make it difficult for them. They truly are support services.
Yeah. I was going to bring that point up. I'm glad you did. The collaboration that's happening here. And probably, I'm assuming, with other agencies around town, like, well, maybe we can't help you, but you know what? Let us help you get in touch with the appropriate organization to see if that's next. It seems to be a lot of that going on. I love this community, right? And Dawn, you mentioned there's a great community partners there, and Angie, I know you recognize that too. There seems to be a lot of that going on in Sarnia Lambton, that collaboration.
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you that this is my first year as an executive director, and we have a fabulous group called Social Service Network, which is all of executive directors that come to the
Oh,
table.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
It has been one of my greatest resource and my greatest learning through all of this. And I know I can pick up the phone to any service provider here in Sarnia, and the executive directors are amazing. So I will put that plug in, because I don't know what I would have done this year with, it's been like,
Well,
what is going on?
yeah. My first year in hello pandemic.
Yeah.
Here's the big test, right?
Yeah.
Waking up going, is this a joke? Like, what's going on?
We wish, right?
Yeah.
Well, ladies, I thank you both for joining me here. And just before I go, I always like to put out there, is there anything else you guys want to talk about before I let you get back to your busy days?
Nothing for me. Thanks for
All covered, eh? Okay.
Thanks for having us.
I was glad we were able to talk you to get in front of the camera, because some people don't like getting in front of that camera. Well, I do appreciate it, and we've shared the websites here, and we'll continue to share it after as well. And please, you've got my contact info. Reach out anytime that we can put, especially right now, it's probably hard to get all the awareness out there. So happy to have you back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, a good conversation to find out more about. I hope you were paying attention to that one. Sarnia Lambton Children's Aid Society, and of course, we have the Women's Interval Home and the Sexual Assault Survivor Center here in Sarnia. Reach out to them and go back and watch this interview again, and maybe share the information to someone who might need that. Or, like you said, you heard him in there saying, just ask somebody, "Are you okay?" And just, you don't have to pry, but maybe offer that extra help. A lot of times somebody just needs that extra helping hand. And there is a lot of things happening in homes right now. So let's just keep an eye on each other and take care of each other, right? That's important for us to do right now. Well, I want to say thank you to all of my guests for joining me. Jenne Wasson from Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario. Some great information there. Again, we'll post their links. And Mayor Mike Bradley joining us there with a nice detailed conversation of what's happening right now, how they make decisions, and what we can maybe expect, and support from the city. It's all happening. Of course, earlier this morning, if you're watching this live, City Council had their meeting online. And of course, tomorrow, Tuesday at 10:30, here on the Show with David Burrows page and on the City of Sarnia page and some others as well, they'll be having a town hall meeting at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'll be on there asking some questions as well. Hope you'll join us for that. Wow. And of course, thank you to my final guest that just joined me there as well. That's all the time I've got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We will get through this. Until next time, bye for now.